So being a topical conversation today, we're going to talk about the top security threats, cybersecurity threats in 2023. Let's see. Button. So everybody deals with phishing on an everyday basis. And it was very interesting to see that this popped up on the Concord Monitor, and at least 4 people sent it to me saying, does this really work? And I always laugh because I don't know if they're being silly or if I'm being silly and responding back to some of these. But phishing is the way that the bad guys are getting in and doing the things that they're doing today. Roughly 70% of the breaches that you experience or see in the news or read about start with phishing. And here's a very simple one. So let's start off with our knowns for 2023. Your personal information isn't private anymore, and it's being used against you. Very simply, anything that you used to be told about protect your social security number, protect your date of birth, protect your birth certificate, all of those things that you considered private and personally identifiable information, it's all out there on the internet, and it's just a matter of where you go to look for it and if you're smart enough to find it. So with the TransUnion hack, TransUnion is one of the credit reporting bureaus. They leaked 150 million credit reports, seeing that there's 350 million Americans and 150 million credit reports were leaked. That's a sizable portion of the American public. Experian had their data exposed via API in April 21. This was about 125 million people. We're talking, again, a significant portion of the American adult public. And then we go back to Equifax, and they had their exposure in May of 2017. Now, right here on my desk, I will show everybody that I have a check. Oh, nope, that's the Wells Fargo one. But I have a check on my desk for $5.17. That was the settlement that I received from the Equifax hack back in May of 2017. So every American that was hacked based upon the settlement, if you applied for the settlement and were granted, dispensation for it, you, like me, would have received in January a check for $5.17 to make you whole for the fact that all of your data is exposed on the internet because of Equifax. I'm not a happy camper over it. You shouldn't be either. We continue to deal with a massive labor shortage in cybersecurity. There's not a lot of folks that want to go into cybersecurity. It's a tough job. You have to have a certain mindset in order to get involved in it. And if you look at the numbers that were reported in September 2022 from the Department of Labor, 755,000 job openings. There's 101.11 million people working, but there's an additional 755,000 openings today. That's a lot of people. So we're talking about a 60% or 40% gap in the number of jobs versus people actually working. That makes it tough. And if we look on a worldwide basis, Fortune magazine, Fortune put this out on their website. We have 4.7 million workers working, and we need 3.4 million more for a total of 8.1 million people. It's scary if you think about all these cybersecurity positions across all these companies where you have your data, you have your pictures, you have your financial information, anything and everything that exists in the world about you being stored across all these different companies, and they don't have enough people in the world to protect it. And then we have the third issue of the evolving geopolitical environment. If you've had your head in the sand for the last year, you might not have noticed that, that the world has been technically at war. If you think about everybody against Russia, Iran, North Korea, and China, based upon the war that's going on in Ukraine. And that has really spiked all of the number of cybersecurity events that have been occurring coming out of Russia, Iran, and North Korea, because they're driving every event that they can to get more cash. Because it's all about ransomware. It's all about money. And if they can get money, they can keep their dictatorships, their aggressive dictatorial regimes going, but they've got to have money to do it. And they're doing it based upon people with poor security. So it's going to be a rough year. Last year was a rough year. The year before was rough. It just seems to get rougher and rougher as we go forward because of all the problems of not having enough people. So we're going to talk about preparing. By failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. Benjamin Franklin, he said it 250 years ago. It's still true today, right? If you're not preparing, you're preparing. If you're not, you get it. So rule number one in cybersecurity, you must be prepared just enough to be too time consuming for the bad guys so they move on to somebody easier. Time is money. I'm sure folks remember that joke about the bear and your buddy, and you're out for a hike, and they see the bear, and the buddy says, "Why are you putting on your running shoes?" And the guy says, "I don't have to outrun the bear. I just have to outrun you." That is a perfect way to understand how you need to be prepared in the cybersecurity realm. If you can make yourself hard or harder than the guy next to you, they're going to get the guy next to you. They're not going to get you. Time is money. This is an economic event. It's not malicious. It's not meant to punish you specifically. It's meant to get money. So our number one threat in cybersecurity today is you. You as the untrained version of you. If you're not taking the time to learn all of the things that are out there today in cybersecurity training, IT training, anything that you can do to protect you and yourself and your family and your friends, there's a problem. Because there's a lot of information out there today. Very easily, you can train yourself and you can make yourself just a little bit safer. We go to classes for CPR to learn how to provide CPR. We go to classes to be able to do the Heimlich maneuver. We go to classes for all sorts of little things that you want to know and are able to do. We go to classes for cooking so you can be a better cook. Everyone should be going to classes to protect themselves on the internet, to be able to use the resources of the internet in a safe manner and not expose yourself unnecessarily. So the United States government offers through CISA, Cybersecurity Awareness Program. This will be included on the handout at the end. So if you'll get a hold of James or Sarah after this is over, there's links provided in the handout on these different sources and these resources. And I'd like everybody to take time and if you just do a little bit, you'll be amazed on how much you'll learn. Number two, social media hacking is the number two threat in the world today. Using you to attack your friends. This happens regularly. We all seen it. Everyone has Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and all of these other social media accounts, and suddenly you'll get a friend invitation from somebody you're already friends with. And you realize, well, I'm already friends with Joe. Why would Joe be asking me again? And you discover that it's not really the same Joe. It's a bad guy Joe that's taken some of Joe's pictures and turned them into a profile, and they try to get you to do things and accept him as a friend, because the more friends that they have, the more reputable they are. And this is the cartoon applies directly into that manner right there. So again, it's back to training yourself. If you can train yourself on some of this, you'll be a little bit more weary and better prepared to say, does this make sense that I'm friends with Joe and now Joe's asking me to be friends again? It's very straightforward, but it gives you the doubt to say, you know what, I probably shouldn't be friends with Joe again, unless Joe can give me a good reason why. Maybe something happened to his account. Maybe he forgot his password and he set up a new account. There's all sorts of reasons, but don't use the social media platform that you're on to ask Joe what happened. Call him on the phone or send him an email or get a hold of him some other way. Verify through a third party method that Joe is really Joe and not a bad guy Joe, pretending to be Joe. Ransomware as a service. Now, this is the fun one. This is really interesting to me because I'm a nerd. I've been a nerd for 40 years talking about all this stuff. I've written software programs. I've done all sorts of stuff. And now it used to be that smart people had to write ransomware and then they had to use it on the internet in order to make things happen. And the smart guys finally figured out that anyone could do ransomware if they rent the software to do it. So everybody that's on this call could get on the dark web, use their personal credit card, and go out and rent ransomware. And then you can create emails and you can send out emails and you can cause people to be encrypted. And then you have to provide the technical support to help them pay the ransom and get their files decrypted. You didn't know that there was the opportunity for another career. And here it is, ransomware as a service. So the bad guys say, hey, if you're going to do this, you can just send me a percentage. So for every $1 million you collect in ransomware, you have to send the bad guys that wrote it 10%. That's a pretty good deal for the ransomware bad guys, isn't it? They wrote this piece of software and they're not even having to do anything anymore. They're just watching the royalties come in. I mean, that's capitalism at its best, right? So ransomware as a service is out there everywhere. It is amazing how many flavors of it I see on a weekly basis hit all the different filters that we have to pay attention to. And it just brings me back to something very simple. Are y'all backing up all of your files? Backups are essential to thwarting what the bad guys are going to do. If you have a backup, you can just ignore the ransom, restore your system, and move on with your life and not be separated from your hard-earned cash. But if you're not backing it up and suddenly you lose all those photos from your kids that go back the last 20 years, and you've got to make the decision between paying $2,500 or $5,000 or $30,000 to a bad guy, or losing all of those pictures on your phone or your tablet or your computer forever, which one are you going to pick? It's a hard thing to do. And I've had many people show up in my offices over the years crying over this specific type of event. Since 2012, once a quarter at least, I've had somebody in my office crying because they didn't have the $5,000 or even the $500 to pay the ransom to get their stuff back. And they knew that it was going to permanently impact their life. Please back up your data. The simplest thing you can do. So please have 2 copies of it. Everybody has a cell phone and they use Verizon, AT&T, Google, Microsoft, something. Every one of them provides a backup service, and it's an add-on to your bill, and it costs $2 to $5 a month. Do it. Just do it for every device that you have. And then if you can, attach a hard drive and back it up a different way, just to give you something in your fireproof, because we all have fireproofs of all that, birth certificates and deeds and the important papers that we all keep. Banks don't have safe deposit boxes anymore. They were too expensive. So now most people have a little fireproof at home. Do a backup once a quarter, put it on a hard drive and toss it in your fireproof safe. And you will be very happy when you go through a ransomware event. It is amazing how much they are. How many events I see happen on a monthly basis. So this is my good joke. I just ran across this one on Monday. Last Monday. We narrowed down our security group to risks. It's everyone who works here and everyone that does it. I mean, if you can quantify it down to just 2 groups of people, it makes life easy, right? Everyone. So the next problem that we're dealing with is crypto mining. So back in the day, 10 years ago, you had to worry about getting spyware on your machines because the spyware would see where you were going and what you were doing, and they would report that information. Eventually, the bad guys figured out, hey, there's a lot of computers that sit out there and run 24/7, and they have resources available for us to use for crypto mining. Now, there's a whole paper behind this that Verizon published last year, and it's really amazing how many machines have been compromised in the last 3 years that sit there and they spend 90% of their day mining crypto and giving those results to the bad guys. So they're just sitting there crypto mining. And your one defense on that is you can scan your system and find those resources being used. So please have a good software system installed with antivirus, anti-malware, internet security software. Anybody that's using Comcast today has this included. Norton Security is part of your Comcast program. Go to comcast.net/security, and you can download and install something on every machine that you have in your house. If you don't use Comcast, if you use TDS or some of the other providers, you can go to their website, you can call their support and ask. Some provide it as part of the subscription, some don't. If they don't, here's a list of easy ones that you can use. Norton 360 Deluxe, Bitdefender, ESET, WebRoot. These are all reputable companies. They all have software packages, and expect to pay $50 a year. That's not that out of scope of reason. Number 5, nation-backed cyber attacks against public infrastructure. This is a big one. Does anybody remember the gas pipeline that got hacked by the bad guys in the ransomware about 3 years ago, and prices of gas, because we're having problems getting gas through that pipeline from Houston all the way up the East Coast? It never really seemed to affect us in New Hampshire. But you looked at Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, and there was all those gas lines and all the things. And do you know that they finally found those bad guys, and those bad guys apologized and gave all the money back? Well, they're in jail now too, but so they gave the money back. But they got paid like $12 million, and they actually helped restore all the systems, because when they used their cryptoware to attack this gas pipeline, they did not know it was a gas pipeline. And there's kind of this unwritten rule amongst the bad guys to not attack public infrastructure when it's just the bad guys. But when we're talking about nation-backed attacks, be it Russia, Iran, North Korea, China, other countries of that ilk, there's no, gloves off. If they want to attack public infrastructure, they will and they can. Or they can and they will. So you've got to be prepared. Again, back to our first slide. If you're not preparing, if you're failing to prepare, you're preparing to fail. So get a generator for home use. Get your house wired to have a generator. Be sure to have gas on hand to be able to run the generator. If you live in an area where you have natural gas, get a natural gas generator and plug it in. Have somebody install it. It's worth every penny. Stock a week's worth of food and water. It's amazing to me. I grew up out west. My parents grew up in blizzard country of South Dakota, North Dakota, where you could be trapped at home for a month. I grew up in a house where we always had a month's supply of food and water ready to go, even when we lived in Texas, and we never went through a blizzard. It's hard training. Once you get used to it, it's a normal thing to have. So I was always surprised people that didn't have food and water stored in their house. I just always thought that was weird. Get a battery backup. You can buy batteries all over the place now that will recharge your cell phone or your tablet or your iPad, whatever that may be, 3, 4, 5 times, and they cost $20, $30, $40. When you're out of power for a day or 2 or 3, it's amazing how important it is to have your device charged and ready to go for when the power comes back on, or maybe you're out of power, but you still have cell coverage, and it gives you a contact to the outside world. And then lastly, have a go bag packed with at least 3 days of essentials to be able to be away from home. Put your important papers in there, have your birth certificates, your passports, all of those things that you think are important, plus season appropriate clothing. By saying season appropriate clothing, that means you should probably visit your go bag twice a year to make it, to update it so that it's ready to go for summer or winter. Now we've got the Internet of Things. Not everybody is paying attention to the fact that they've got 37 to 50 devices sitting in their house that talk to the internet. Now, that's not everybody, but the report that I was reading earlier today on this got into a long discussion that by the end of 2025, they expect to have 48 billion devices in American households. Do you know that's 48 billion devices? And we're just talking about the United States. 48 billion devices in the United States as part of the Internet of Things. That's talking about kitchen stoves and refrigerators and door locks and TVs and doorknob cameras and all of these different things that are all connected to the internet and can all spy on you, but can be used. I mean, they can be used for their intended purpose, but they can be hacked by the bad guys, and the bad guys are constantly trying to figure out how to hack them. There was a camera provider. You could buy these cameras off the internet. They were, $30 each. They were connected to the internet, and you could look at them on your smartphone, and you could keep an eye out for when the mail lady delivered the mail to your house, and you knew. And all those cameras got hacked, and suddenly there were 3 million new things existing on the internet streaming, and you could go to these different websites and actually hack and find your own camera. It was tremendous. It was truly, but there was zero security built into these cameras, and so the bad guys just took advantage of it. And once they found the first one, they knew how to find all the others. 3 million cameras around the world suddenly hacked and then exposed. Wow. Update everything. Keep every device that you have as up to date as you can. And if you're not sure, contact the manufacturer. If there's an auto update function, a lot of systems today, especially built in the last 3 years, have some sort of an auto update function. Just turn it on and you have less to worry about. Now, I get in and do penetration testing. I do vulnerability assessments. I do risk assessments and things of that nature in environments. And your home environment is not the same as a business environment. But by just doing the simple thing of keeping your devices inside of your house up to date, again, we're going back to you're running a little faster than the other guy trying to get away from the bear. If your devices are updated, it's one more thing to make it harder. Does that make sense? So, number 7, vishing. Someone calls you on the phone, pretends to be a police officer or an IRS agent or some other government official, and they're telling you, hey, there's a family member that's going to go to jail right now unless you wire us $500 through Western Union. Or it's the IRS demanding back taxes. Hey, by the way, you owe us $5,000 and we've already called the sheriff and they're on their way to your house to arrest you right now for failing to pay back taxes. We've contacted you 47 times. You've ignored all of them. You didn't go to court. You didn't do anything that was required. And it's just, they treat it like an eviction and they get really excited and they escalate how they talk to you, which gets you on a back foot because you don't know any of this information because it's all a lie. And then you can have the regular collections calls. You know, you owe us $500 for your electric bill. And if you don't, pay it right now on the phone, the guy is sitting out on the street and he's going to turn off your electricity in the next 5 minutes. How many people want to have their electricity turned off? No one. Medical bills, you can't go to the doctor anymore. Credit cards, you can't pay your bills. You don't have health insurance or you don't have car insurance or any of those types of things. These are all scams that are perpetrated over the phone from all over the world. And it all starts with answering the call. If you don't answer the call, you don't have a thing to worry about. But if you do, and it's an unknown call or it seems suspicious, well, you should be suspicious of any call you answer. It's not somebody that you know directly. And you need to be doubly suspicious with anything that has an urgent demand for payment. If they're saying the police are on the way and they're going to arrest you in 5 minutes, you know what? Let them come. Wait 5 minutes, and then you've just blown the entire story. It's not, you can wait. And if you have any doubts, contact the agency or the company or someone else. You can hang up on the person that's got you on the call, and you can go and do your own investigation to find out if there's any real, but they can't just show up and arrest you. We don't live in a third world country. That's not how this process and system works. But people fall for this all the time, and they lose thousands upon thousands of dollars. Number 8, compromised accounts. How many people have accounts that they use today that when they log in, they use their username and their safe password, and then they get a 6-digit code on their cell phone? Yeah, I do that with some of my accounts, the ones I don't care about as much about. But you can get that 6-digit code. Did you know the bad guys can steal your phone number overnight and transfer it to another vendor, and then they can catch that 6-digit code? So they already know your username, they already know your password, and they just need that 6-digit code. So they wait for you to log into the account, or they go and log into the account, they get the code, and then they get it on their phone that they've transferred to them. And the worst thing is you don't know it's happened until it's too late. In October, one of my coworkers' sons lost $3 million between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. He went to bed at 10 p.m. The bad guys transferred his phone from Verizon to AT&T to a brand new phone, and they implemented a wire transfer at 2 a.m. and cleaned up the account. And it was gone by 5 a.m. when the guy woke up and checked his phone and realized that he didn't have service, but he still had email, and he saw the wire confirmation go through, and $3 million was gone. It was business account, and it was tied to, and it was backed up. He had insurance and all the other things that went along with it. He did everything that he was supposed to do, but nobody thought about his account being stolen, his phone number being stolen. So it's time to stop using the 6-digit text message account type systems that authenticate you that way. And it's time to move into an authenticator system where you have an application that runs on your phone and it provides codes to your devices. I'm going to hold up one that I have on my phone to my camera and see if y'all can see it. Nope, I guess you can't see it. But I have Google Authenticator that I use for some accounts. I use the Microsoft Authenticator for another accounts, and I use Duo for another set of accounts. So that by trying to spread everything across multiple platforms, again, it makes it harder for the bad guys if they get into one system to get across all systems. And Fred, everybody should be making sure that they're using the MFA on any account they can. Last, number 9, I'll be quick on this one. Illicit transfers from your checking account. Everybody should be checking their account on a weekly, bi-weekly basis, looking for these illicit transfers. They're called small or micro transactions coming from your account, and they can be used to prepare for a large withdrawal, or they can just be pinging you to get for $1.99, $9.99, $14.99, $19.99, whatever the amount is. And they hope that you'll just think, oh, that's my Netflix subscription, or that's my Disney Plus, or it's some subscription that you have, and everybody thinks it's okay. You should be checking those, because somebody could actually be stealing your money $2 at a time. And if you think $2 at a time times 10,000 people times however many months that they're running, that's a lot of cash. And then lastly, smishing. Smishing is we were talking about phishing via email and then vishing via voice email or voice calls. Now we're talking about smishing, which is texts, receiving text messages with or without links that relate to financial transactions. This is one that came in on my phone probably a year ago. Amazon purchase notification, US dollars. And then the first thing I notice is it's 1.099, That's European annotation for dollars and cents. We use 1 comma, not 1 period. So as soon as I saw that, I said, okay, yeah, they got me. Bad guy here. So iPhone 13C. I don't even know what an iPhone 13C is for this mobile number now purchased. So the language just doesn't come through click well, and all they're trying to do is get you to click that link. If you click that link, they've got you. Sometimes they just send a phone number, and all they want you to do is call. And they'll say something simple like, if this transaction is in error, please call this number. And once they get you on the phone, they go, oh yeah, we already charged you $400. So just give us your information and we're going to give you the $400 back. Again, it's a lie. This is all about people lying. If you give them your information, they're going to take more money. They didn't have any money. You gave them the information. Then you got to argue whether or not you legitimately provided a service, whether you do a refund, things of that nature. Don't do it. It's that simple. Just don't respond. 99.99% of the time, it's fake. We've all been around long enough to see these things and know what's real and what's not real. Wrapping up. You are the biggest risk to you and your family when it comes to cybersecurity. If you train yourself and make yourself just a little faster than the other guy so that you can run away from that bear a little quicker, you've got a better chance. That's really what this comes down to. Prepare yourself. Take the time to invest in yourself by learning more. James has a handout that he can send you that covers all this, the important things that I would like you to learn as far as attending some training and being more prepared. And with that, I'll stop.
Excellent. Thank you, Tom, very much.